a guest that I've been wanting to have on for I don't know, maybe 100 years. No, not that long, but a long time. And his name is Dr. Stephen Klineberg. Dr. Klineberg, welcome to A Tip from Gilbert.
Thank you, Gilbert. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you. And you know what? Dr. Klineberg, first of all, he has this incredible book, and hopefully we can zoom in on this. It's called The Prophetic City. And what this book really is about, it's about the city of Houston. And it's about all the changes going on and a peek into the future. But the beautiful thing about it is Dr. Klineberg is really a modern Obi-Wan Kenobi. See, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I'm young Luke or young Gilbert. Gilbert, follow the Force. I'm young Gilbert, and you are Obi-Wan Kenobi. Sure. Because
no pressure here.
Yeah, no pressure. Because Dr. Klineberg has been doing something amazing, and he'll talk about it because he started doing a survey in the city of Houston back in the early 80s, right? Late
1982.
1982.
Houston was still booming.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to be quiet. But the bottom line is he's been doing a survey, and it is amazing what it tells us. But before we go there, we already have a caller. Constable, are you there, Constable?
Yes, Mr. Gilbert. How are you doing today? Thanks for having me.
Constable, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, brother.
What's going on in Fort Bend County?
Oh, just the usual, things happen every day, and, we just try to make the best of it.
Well, we thank you and your team for all you do to keep us safe and to really just take care of people and help guide us. What do you got for us today? What do you got for me, or what do you got for Dr. Klineberg here on A Tip from Gilbert?
Well, today, starts spring break, and I just want to kind of talk about some of the stuff, at least out here in Fort Bend County, that has been going on. When kids are out on spring break, you have a lot of cars on the road. Kids want to go out and party, but they should, if they're going to drink, they need to drink more responsible. And I just want to kind of share some stats on the number of accidents that we had just in Fort Bend County in the year of 2022. And we had about 12,000 crashes, and
12,000 crashes
in Fort Bend County last year.
In 1 year, wow.
1 year, and about 3,800 of them were due to speed related, and about 304 were alcohol related, and 84 of those were strictly intoxication. So it could be alcohol, it could be a prescription drug or some other narcotic. So I just want to remind everybody that's listening, 12,000 crashes in a year. And when we have, holidays, that's when you tend to see more crashes, more DWIs, because you have, students and everybody that are out there out on the street. But just want to remind everybody that, if you're going to party and you're going to go out and drink and enjoy yourself, just please do it responsible.
Right. Don't drink and drive.
No.
Please do not drink and drive. Your life is much more valuable to me and to everybody else, and should be to yourself.
Right. Well, Constable, how many of those have led to fatalities?
So the fatalities,
do you know offhand?
I don't have it, and I don't want to give you.
Okay, but there's more than a handful, I assume.
Correct, and Texas roads are probably some of the most dangerous roads in the nation, and there's the fatality on Texas roads, and you see the signs throughout when you're driving, and they talk about the fatalities, and the state is trying to do what they can. Law enforcement tries to do what they can, but there's only so much we can do. We need cooperation from the community that we serve in order to keep everybody safe.
Well, Constable, I really appreciate it. So if somebody, I don't know the right word, needed help, what's the number for them to call for the constable there in Fort Bend?
Yes, sir.
Call you. You call your. Is it like call you? Is it call your office? When someone says call the constable, who are they calling?
Yeah, so you typically call my office.
Okay.
And you can all to speak for me, but I'll give a contact number, and I'll actually give out my email address for anybody that would just want to contact me directly. But the office phone number is 281-242-4014. And I'll repeat it again, 281-242-4014. And my email address is nabil.shite@fortbendcountytx.gov. And, because I'm very transparent and I love, just interacting with people, I'll actually give out my personal contact number if you don't mind that.
Please.
Yes, sir. So just for all the viewers and listeners, it's 832-755-0922. And I'll repeat it again, 832-755-0922. And I'm pretty much available and open to speak pretty much at any time of the day. If I don't answer the call, just shoot me a text and I will call you back.
Wow, that is, by the way, right now we have you on stream with your really handsome picture there with your uniform and everything. Constable, we really appreciate you and thank you for all that you do to keep us safe.
Yes, sir. Thank you, and thank you for all that you guys do.
We're trying. Well, thank you, my friend.
Okay.
Take care.
Yes, sir. So, Dr. Klineberg, tell us, how did young Dr. Klineberg come up with this idea and go through the whole thing on this survey? How did it start?
So it started as it fell to my lot to teach a research methods class to sociology majors at Rice University. Houston was booming. 1 million people had moved into Houston between 1970 and 1982.
Holy cow.
1 million, coming at the rate of 1,380 people a week, 230 cars and trucks every day being added to the streets and freeways there. Greatest boom anyone had ever seen, brought about by the tenfold increase in the value of oil. The price of a barrel of oil was $3.20 in 1970, and then it went to 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. We were building and borrowing on the basis of $50 oil. And this was a boomtown in America. It was also a city world famous for having imposed the least amount of controls on development of any city in the Western world.
And how come? It just happened that way?
This has been the tradition of Houston. There's minimum government, maximum free enterprise. It was a city built by, for, and on behalf of developers, and it was booming. It was also growing concerns about traffic, pollution, crime. What kind of city are we building with all this affluence? So we did a one-time survey to measure how are people balancing this tremendous growth with growing concerns about the.
And so how many people did you have? Were these students?
So these were 11 students who signed up for this course.
Do you know where they are still? Do you talk to any of them?
Some of them.
Yeah. So there were 11 students
in that first class, and we all did the interviews by ourselves. The total cost of the survey was $1,800.
Wow.
To just get the samples. Now, of course, it's a $200,000 proposition. It's a
wow.
whole new. But so we did a one-time survey. It never occurred to us to do it again. It was a great, really very interesting. You saw a city increasingly concerned about the problems, but exhilarated by the affluence of the city. 2 months later, the oil boom collapsed. The price of oil that had gone from $3.20 to $35.50, we were building and borrowing on the basis of $50 oil, suddenly fell down to $28 by the end of 1983. A world glut of oil, and 100,000 jobs were lost in Houston by the end of 1983. We said, my gosh, we better do this survey again.
Wow.
And it never occurred to us to do it and then every year since then, taking a representative random sample of Harris County residents, asking people with identical questions over the years, how do you see the world? What is happening in your life? And we have watched the world change. It's just been a remarkably interesting phenomenon and pure luck. I mean, I get unfairly credited with having planned to do this.
Yeah.
This is never occurred to me to study.
Has any other city? So you have data from all these going all the way back to 1982.
From 41 years.
Oh, has any other city done this?
It's Los Angeles has an annual survey, but it's directed by different people each year, so it doesn't have that same kind of continuity.
Yeah.
As far as we know, no other city has been. Several cities have been asking me now, how do we do? Difficulty in that now is it's $200,000 to do a survey, and it takes a couple of years until you realize how valuable this is. One-time survey, is that high or low? Is that good or bad? Is that up or down? You have 3 or 4 years. You can watch a city.
You have to have a comparison. Nothing is good or bad in isolation.
Right.
It's good or bad relative to where it was.
That's right.
And now how many people do you sample?
So now we sample about 1,000 people every year. And at the beginning it was all by telephone, of course, and everybody had a telephone, and the phone rings and you answer the damn telephone.
And then you're like, yes, I'll take that survey. I mean,
so no one answers the telephone anymore.
Right.
So we had a shift from random digit dialing, which was the standard back in the 60s and 70s, to address-based sampling, where you get the post office to give you a list of addresses random sample of addresses in Harris County, and then you write to those folks and ask them to participate in the survey. And it's much harder to get people to do it, but they do it. And then you can weight the data at the end to make sure that you're representing equally. You always get a higher percentage of older Anglos who will answer the phone and fewer young Latinos.
Yep.
And so, but you get enough of them, and you can then weight the data so that it reflects really remarkably well, considering how the city has been changing, how the same ideas are being seen differently today than they were 5 or 10.
Well, hold that thought for a second, because I still want to go into more of this, the logistics before we go to the data, which is, how long is a survey?
Well, on the phone, it takes about 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
In these surveys now, it's it's just 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
We do 2 or 3 instead of just one.
And so people say, yes, I'm willing to do it. And then
What do you want to know?
And then you keep going.
Yeah.
Wow. And how do you pick the people that you're sampling?
So again, it's a representative random sample. In the old days, it was random phone numbers, random 4-digit numbers associated with the 3 prefixes that serve Harris County telephone. And now it's the post office. It gives us a random sample of their addresses.
Wow. So what have you seen? Who is Houston now? Let's go that way. What have you seen how Houston has changed, and who is Houston?
Right. Well, the great phenomenon, of course, is that Anglos were pouring into the city during the 60s and 70s, because this is where the jobs were. The rest of the country was having its Carter malaise, its stagflating 70s. Houston was booming. After the oil bust of 1982, the Anglo population of Harris County stopped growing. And all the growth of the most rapidly growing city in America in the last 40 years has been the influx of African Americans, Latinos, and Asians. And this biracial southern city, dominated and controlled by white men, has become the single most ethnically diverse metropolitan area in the country.
Wow.
And you were talking about Fort Bend.
Right.
Fort Bend may be the most ethnically diverse county on the planet. You look at how do you measure the diversity of a population? How close does it come to 1/4 Asian, 1/4 Latino, 1/4 African American, 1/4 Anglo? And by that measure, Fort Bend comes very close to being. Fort Bend is 22% Asian, 21% African American, 25% Latino, 27% Anglo.
That's amazing.
Isn't it amazing?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And we're all living in this community together, trying to remember the old saying, can't we all just get along?
Trying to get along.
And we're trying to get along.
Yeah. And we're falling in love with each other, marrying, making multiracial babies. And
isn't that amazing?
And that's the new America. And by 2050, the census says all of America will look like Houston looks today. And that's the reason why we claim that it's a prophetic city. This is where the American future, for better or worse, is going to be worked out.
So how we really navigate this is going to be the pathway for all America. And if we don't figure out how to do it, then America's not going to really figure it out.
And you look at the other multi-ethnic cities, Chicago, Washington, Los Angeles, New York. Houston is better positioned than any of these others to be a model for what America can be.
Wow. Hold that thought. I think we have another caller. Do we have another caller there, producer? Go ahead and send it through. And who is it?
Alex.
Is there an Alex? Alex.
Good morning. Thank you for calling me to the Gilbert show. Alex, one moment.
Is there an Alex?
Okay, there you go.
Alex.
Yeah, she's there.
Alex, can you hear me?
Hi, this is Alex. Good
Alex,
morning.
what do you have for me, Gilbert Garcia, a tip from Gilbert, or Dr. Stephen Klineberg, Kenobi?
Well, my question for Dr. Klineberg
yes,
is,
ma'am.
I think it's really interesting, all the work he's done over the years. And I think
Oh, thank you.
I would like to know what's the most interesting finding he's seen throughout the years of his research and surveying.
Most interesting. Oh my God, that's the whole book.
It
It really is.
Well, that's what's been so interesting is to watch. An example. One of the questions we asked over the years was which statement comes closest to your feelings about the public schools in Houston. The schools have enough money, if it was used wisely, to provide a quality education, or the schools will need significantly more money to provide a quality education. And during the 1990s, clear majorities, 58, 63%, were saying the schools have all the money they need, it's being wasted. And then during the first decade of the 21st century was a 20-20, a 50-50 split. And today, 69% in the latest survey said the schools will need significantly more money. It's a new recognition, a sea change in the recognition that how important education has become, and the fact that we are not spending the kind of money that we need to, and without spending that money, the gap between rich and poor in Houston and America continues to expand.
Well, Dr. Klineberg and Alex, I don't know if you're still there, but stay with us, Alex, if you're there. So I had the president of the school board, HISD, last week on my show, and I was going through some stats because I was, sort of getting ready for the show. Like I was reading some of your articles and other things to get ready for the show. And I noticed that when you really look at the data, first and foremost, there's never been, and this is studies, never been a situation where a school system had been taken over by a state and it came out better.
Never been a case.
Never a case. The other thing I found was there is ample evidence that suggests if you spend more money per student, you get a better outcome.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, it really makes perfect
sense. The capitalist system.
That's right.
If you want to hire the best teachers, you got to pay them enough so that they are able to be teachers and afford to be able to.
And then if you got good teachers, you want to have them with good supplies and good things around them and good libraries and good tools and that costs money,
and address the inequalities in terms of access to healthcare and so on.
Well, what's interesting is first in Houston, I'm just speaking facts. I'm not trying to be a political person here, and that is the state of Texas spends less per student than any state in America.
Right.
On top of that, the city of Houston spends less per student than any other city in the state of Texas.
And part of the reason for that is that we've come out of an economy in which education was not important. The great sources of wealth in Texas was land and all the things you could do on the land. The big fortunes made from cotton, timber, cattle, sugar, oil. The source of wealth in the 21st century will have less and less to do with natural resources and more to do with human resources, with knowledge and skills. And Houston is way behind because we never felt that was important. And what's interesting in the surveys is that there's been a sea change in the general public's understanding of how critical spending on education is for the Houston future. Because the other piece of that is that we talked about the demographic shifts.
Right.
It's also a major shift by age. The median age of Anglos in Harris County is 43. The median age of Latinos is 24.
Wow.
So the future of everybody under the age of 20 in all of Harris County, 51% are Latinos, 19% are African Americans, 10% are Asians, 21% of everybody under 20 is Anglo.
Wow.
So the future of Houston is in the African American Latino communities.
Well, what's interesting too, on that spending demographic I just went through, the other thing is the lack of spending is disproportionately represented in minority schools.
Absolutely.
I mean, it seems like, of course, but how terrible.
Right.
Because they're probably the ones that need, well, not they are probably, we know they're the ones that need it the most.
Well, and a beautiful example is preschool. Rich kids start kindergarten 1.5 to 2 years ahead of poor kids in Houston, and that gap continues to expand. And for the last 40 years, almost all the benefits of economic growth have gone to the richest 20% of Americans. And before that, during the 30 years after World War II, the rising tide lifted all boats. You could drop out of high school with a strong right arm, become a rustabout on the oil fields, work for Hughes Tool Company, Cameron Iron Works, and be able to make a middle-class wage. Those jobs have disappeared. So it's a new economic reality and a new demographic reality that have come together in Houston and are coming together across all of the country. And so what we do here, how we manage that transition will have enormous significance, not just for the Houston future, but for the American future.
Wow. Alex, I don't know if that's like resonating with you, but isn't that incredible?
That is.
I mean,
Thank you so much, Dr. Klineberg.
Well, Alex, thank you for calling in, and please call in again. Dr.
Yes,
Klineberg.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, Dr. Klineberg. So the thing is this, it seems to me, if you're gonna progress, you got to have a way to focus and target on those young Hispanic and African American and even Asian kids that are the ones that need it the most, that are in the schools that are neglected the most, in the city that already spends less per student.
Right.
What am I missing?
You're and the general public, the general public is increasingly aware of the critical importance of this. What we're missing is a way to move that into action. into a serious, sustained effort to turn that around, because we have only one generation to do it.
Well, that comes to, there was an incredible article that Dr. Klineberg wrote in the Houston Chronicle. This is the Outlook section. This was dated February 19th. And look at that headline, Houston. Hold on, I'm going to get it so everyone can see it. I'll read it. It's time that leaders catch up with residents. Now, that's probably something that doesn't always happen when the residents and the masses recognize we need to do more in schools. We need to spend more money. They don't have enough money. They don't have enough resources. And the leaders are just squandering that opportunity.
Right.
Because the opportunity is there.
And the city of Houston keeps saying, the city has no responsibility for education. It's all HISD. Nonsense. There's tremendous responsibility for preschool and after school programs, for being a catalyst. One of the things that I call on people to do now is that let's become a learning society. If we're not going to throw enough money at these problems, let's throw people at these problems. Let's figure out a way to have every business in Houston adopt a school, and one afternoon a month meet with a kid, and have every church provide preschool and after school programs. And you could, I mentioned the aging of Anglos,
right?
Well, that's a tremendous resource. Incredible people who are retired in their 60s and early 70s have 20 years of vigorous adult life ahead of them, just waiting, I think, to be asked. Come and help us educate this next generation.
Yeah. And you made a good point, and I don't know if I'll be able to repeat it, but you said something to the effect of spending more money doesn't necessarily mean a better outcome for students, but you can have a better outcome for students without spending more money.
Beautiful. Exactly.
We already have lots of people on. So is there a Vic on the line?
Yes.
Vic, this is Gilbert Garcia, a tip from Gilbert with Dr. Klineberg. What do you have for me?
Well, I have a question for Dr. Klineberg.
Okay.
I just wanted to know what exactly prompted him to begin studying in this field.
Well, I've always been interested in social change. And I became an expert in survey research. And so that all sort of came together with a friend of mine who started a new survey organization back in 1982. And we did, as I mentioned earlier, a one-time survey.
And you thought it was going to be a one and done.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that was all. It was a lot of fun. It was great.
Yep.
We did it. And it just showed, as I mentioned, this differentiation between feelings of optimism about the city and the tremendous economy, but growing concerns about things that we were not addressing. And the social costs of growth were sort of becoming more and more evident. One-time survey. And then, as we mentioned, the price of oil that had kept going up over tenfold in the 1970s until 1982. And then suddenly there was a glut of oil, and the price of oil fell for the first time down to $28 a barrel. And we had been building and borrowing on the basis of $50 oil. And 100,000 jobs were lost by the end of 1983. And so it became clear we've got to do this survey again, because it's now a different reality. And to what degree has the public understood that and seen that? And then each year it became more and more interesting. As you watch the city coming out of by 1988, 1 out of every 7 jobs that had been in Houston disappeared.
Wow.
The worst regional recession of any part of the country at any time since World War II, in a city that had known nothing but economic boom from its beginnings until that fateful date of May 1982, when the oil boom collapsed.
Well, I remember when I was at Yale visiting here in 1983 or so, visiting my brother, and he was out in the suburbs, and I remember all these houses that were just empty. Empty. I mean, it was almost like the whole neighborhood was empty, but there were spotty houses of people living in them. Most of the neighborhood was just empty. People just gave back their house.
And massive overbuilding, because we were building on the basis of $50 oil. And as I say, by 1983, 100,000 jobs were lost, and Houston became the cheapest place in America.
Wow.
To buy a house, and by 1988, 1 out of every 7 jobs had disappeared.
Wow. And in general, when you say 100,000 jobs, what does that translate into people? If the average job is, I don't know, let's just make it up, 2 to 3 people, a family. So you're talking about 300,000 people impacted.
Devastating.
Something like that. Devastating.
In a city that had sort of promised us that we would have nothing but boom for the rest of our lives.
Well, Vic, I'm so glad you joined us. Any follow-up you have for Dr. Klineberg before I move to another caller?
No, I just wanted to say that that's amazing, and I support him in all of his endeavors.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
We have another caller there. Let me see the board there, producer. Is there a Lindsay on?
Hold on, Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Uh,
Is there a Lindsay on? Speak to me, Lindsay.
Good morning.
Lindsay, you have me, Gilbert, a tip from Gilbert, Talk Inspiration and Prayer, with Dr. Stephen Klineberg, and we're having an extraordinary conversation about demographics and about school system and support and leadership. What do you have for us today?
Yes, it's been so exciting to listen to Dr. Klineberg as always, and thank you so much for your work.
you bet. Thank you.
It's invaluable to be able to have that kind of long-term, just that information, and it really informs the decisions that people make, it sounds like. And thank you again.
Oh, you bet. And the survey is going to continue. I'm actually leaving fairly soon for Washington, D.C.
You can't leave, Dr. Klineberg.
We have a fantastic Kinder Institute for Urban Research.
The Kinder Institute is so wonderful.
With the whole team.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
The Kinder
It's
Institute.
very exciting.
It's super great. Lindsay, what do you got for Dr. Klineberg?
Well, mostly this message is for the viewers and listeners. The nonprofit that I've just recently started up has finally kind of, because of your generosity, been able to get the first class going. And so
My pleasure.
Wow.
yes, it's an art class, and so we are kind of also looking to fill some of those education gaps, just just a little bit. We're mostly doing art classes with wellness coaching in there, and so we're wanting people who maybe have experienced something that was either traumatic or it could just be, anybody is welcome to attend these classes.
Art therapy.
Because so it's just kind of a nice.
And what's the average age of participants?
Right now surprisingly, it's been a little older, like about age 40.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
35 to 40. So, but that's because those are the people who we know, but people of all ages are welcome to these classes, and the supplies are provided, and we're so excited. So if people want to sign up, it's at colorsforhealing.org.
That's great.
Colorsforhealing.org. Is there a phone number or anything like that?
Yes, the phone number is 713-909-08. Sorry, let me just look again because it's my business number.
Don't worry.
It's 0843.
Wonderful.
Okay.
You got it there, Lindsay?
Sorry?
Did you got it? You said it?
Yes, it's 713-909-0843.
Wonderful. Well, Lindsay, keep doing great, and keep us posted here on the show of how it's going.
Yes, thanks so much, and thanks again for the contribution.
It was my pleasure.
You bet. No, and that's such an important part for the Houston future is all these initiatives that are developing across the city.
We got to find a way.
We just need to coordinate them.
Yep.
We need to expand them. But Houston has all the resources it needs to make this.
We got to expand. We have an Ernie on the line. Is there an Ernie on the line?
Yes, good morning. Good morning, gentlemen.
Ernie, you got me, Gilbert Garcia. Tip from Gilbert. Talk Inspiration and Prayer with Dr. Stephen Klineberg. What do you got?
Dr. Klineberg and Gilbert, I want to really commend you both as leaders. And most definitely, Dr. Klineberg, your profound research has just helped our city overall. And I just want to applaud you for your due diligence in trying to encourage everyone to pay attention to the data. Because, as you said, I was in a presentation you did with Big Brothers Big Sisters for the city of Houston. Yes, you did a beautiful job telling people that mentor programs and companies such as Gilbert's who support youth activity is vital to the overall success of education in our city.
Hear, hear.
And I want to know, how are you going to continue to promote that as the Kinder Institute, as you pass the baton with Rice University, but I know you'll still be there in spirit.
No, you bet. Well, thank you so much. Well, the Kinder Institute just received a $50 million grant.
Wow.
From the Kinder Foundation.
Wow.
So it's in tremendous shape. And under the leadership of Ruth Lopez Turley, whose expertise is precisely in educational inequalities. It's beautifully positioned to expand the survey for the next 40 years, and also to study what works and what doesn't across the board, and to be a think tank and a resource for as a city understands its need to make these new investments in ensuring that Houston is positioned for prosperity in the very different world of the 21st century, the new knowledge global economy where the source of wealth is knowledge rather than natural resources, and where investing in our people is the most important thing we can do.
I'm going to ask you some questions about the survey. Ernie, anything else you got?
Yes, I just want to also commend Gilbert. Last week, you talked about the importance of corporations working with the city and working with different nonprofits to provide resources to schools. And I think it's so important now as you see Wheatley High School needing the support from everyone. But if every corporation could do what Gilbert's corporation does, and that is philanthropic efforts throughout the year, we would be in a better place. And I appreciate that.
Hear, hear.
Well, amen. And thank you for that, Ernie. And we're gonna keep doing our part. So thank you for calling into the show. I'm going to move to the next call. We have a Michelle. Do we have a Michelle?
Michelle, I'm jumping now.
Is there a Michelle on the line?
A tip one.
Michelle, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Michelle, what do you got? This is Gilbert Garcia, a tip from Gilbert with Dr. Stephen Klineberg.
Yes, well, good morning. I just want to commend Dr. Klineberg for the research and the data that he has phenomenally searched out to bring and to educate the viewers and the city of Houston and all other cities that listen to his work. But my question is, as we all know, we are in light and view of what is taking place with HISD at this moment. My question here is, why do you think that that we are waiting around at this critical moment to step in and to now be radical when this situation has been going on for quite some time now, and now everyone because it didn't become critical just overnight.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
But it's been in this state for quite some time, and now everybody at the last minute when the state wants to come in, or TEA wants to come in and wants to take over. So why do you think that we waited to the last moment to want to try to bring resolve to an issue that's been going on for quite some time?
Yeah, that's a great.
That's a tough one.
Question.
It is the question, but it's a tough one because it's so many elements,
right?
And whether it's politics or whether it's just there's just so many elements to that.
And we're talking about needing to put more resources, even both financial resources and our human energy resources, to turn this around in a city that has never thought this was important. Education was a nice thing to have, but the source of wealth was natural resources, and you dug holes in the ground and you made money. And there were wonderful blue collar jobs for anyone who wanted to work, and this rising tide was lifting all boats. That's been the legacy of Houston. Suddenly changed in 1982. And everything changed. It was really a remarkable date, but we're still, many of us, stuck in the kind of thinking that supported and went with the expectation of continual boom. And so what is interesting in the surveys is that for the last 40 years, virtually all the benefits of economic growth have gone to the richest 20% of Americans, and 60% of all American families that had experienced a doubling of their incomes in the 30 years after World War II have basically stagnated for the last 40 years.
Wow.
And it's taken a while for the general public to recognize. So one example of the question we asked over the years is, do you think that most people who receive welfare payments are really in need of help, or are they taking advantage of the system? And the percent saying they're really in need of help, when he first asked that question, was 53%, growing to 87%.
So when the surveys first started, 53% said they really needed help, which means 47% said they really don't need it. They're just want free this, free that.
That's right.
And now 87% realize that they need it. And that dovetails with one of your questions about if you had an emergency and you needed $400 or $500, what could you do, or something like that. Go through that, because that's really remarkable. Michelle, we're still with you, so don't hang up.
I'm listening.
Okay, because this is a very great question. Go ahead, Dr. Klineberg.
The question said, supposing you had to come up with $400 to meet an emergency expense.
Yes.
How would you deal with that situation? Would you be able to pay for it out of savings? Would you need to borrow it? Or would you not be able to come up with $400? And 41% of Latino families said they could not come up with $400 to meet an emergency expense. Living at the edge, 38% of African Americans, just 15% of Latinos, and 7% of Asians. But it tells you how close people are to having suffering and the deepening inequalities. Another example is we asked people, do you and your family currently have any health insurance? And 48% of Latinos said they had no health insurance whatsoever. So we have the greatest medical complex in the world in the Texas Medical Center, and we have the highest percentage of children without health insurance.
See, that's terrible.
That's what we've inherited from a time when we were riding the oil boom and no one thought of any need for government of any sort. And now increasing recognition, when you ask people in the privacy of their homes, government has to take a role in reducing the inequalities in America.
And here they are bailing out big banks and doing all these things, even today.
Right.
Well, people say they're not bailing out the banks, but they are, because the depositors know that they're only guaranteed safety for $250,000. And yet a lot of people had extra money in there, probably because these were high flying rates. And at the end of the day, they're going to be made whole. And would they do that for a smaller bank, a minority owned bank, or depositors in a minority community versus Silicon Valley? I mean, these bring up very interesting questions as it goes back to the whole concept of the 87% on the welfare. You know, all you got to do, Dr. Klineberg, is do one of these turkey giveaways for Thanksgiving or Christmas. Right. And I've done many in the last 2 years. Boris Miles does them, and I support Senator Miles. And I've been with him. Christina Morales, the state rep with Marianne Pettis, and I've been with her. Some of the churches, Claude Cummins III, he's got the church there. I forgot exactly the street, but I've done it with his church. Yeah. People line up 3-4 hours in advance for free food.
Tremendous poverty in the city.
Yeah, and these are not, this is not about, I just want free this, free that. No, these are people that's the difference between having any meal or not.
That's right. The recognition that people are really in need of help.
It's so clear. It's so clear cut. Yeah. And I've been there, and I try to, say something to them, and you'd be surprised. I mean, it breaks your heart how many of these women, older women, will hug me and thank you. Yeah. I was not going to have anything for the holiday. It's just heart-wrenching.
And again, it's coming out of a history when the rising tide lifted all boats, when there was a trickle-down reality that poor folks could get good jobs and support families in a way that has just changed. Given globalization, companies can produce goods anywhere, sell them everywhere. If you're doing a job I can train a third world worker to do, and I pay that third world worker $15 a day, right, I'm not going to pay you $15 an hour. And we're at the beginnings of the robotics revolution. If you're doing a job that I can program a computer to do, I will soon be replacing your job with an intelligent machine. The critical need is 14 years of education. You've got to, just a high school diploma locks you in poverty. You've got to have 1 or 2 years after high school in a community college, at least, to acquire the technical skills that the new jobs require.
Holy cow. Hopefully everybody heard that, because you know what?
That's the new reality.
We need more education. We need more resources at it. That's the only way Houston's going to continue to grow and prosper. And that's the only way this nation is going to continue to remain competitive. Let me just give Michelle, what else you got real quick before I move to another caller, because you've been very kind and you brought it, you brought that issue up for us, which we thank you. What follow-up do you have? And I think I remember you called before. I think you do a lot of things, nonprofit and so forth. And tell us about what you have again.
Yes, absolutely. And I just wanted to mention that I did hear Dr. Klineberg speaking, about you also too about the food insecurities. Yeah, here at Joseph House Community Outreach Center, this is what we do.
Joseph House,
on a daily basis. Yes, Joseph House Community Outreach Center, and then just to kind of reiterate on that, this morning, this week is for our seniors. We had so many seniors; they were wrapped around Jensen Drive, around the East Texas Freeway 59. Because people in such a need, it is a need out there. Even though the pandemic is over to some degree, people are still in need. So I just want to let you know that we're located here at 7802 Jensen Drive. That's northeast side of 59 East Texas Freeway. You call us 281-936-8175 if you're in need. If you know someone that's in need, this is what we do here. Food, no cost for the food. All there is, you have to make an appointment. It is made by appointment, because we have so many people. But again, this is Joseph House Community Outreach Center. Look us up,
That's right.
Joseph House at josephhousecoc.org.
Michelle, thank you for calling. You are a saint. You're doing the Lord's work, and we thank you. And I'm hugging you on cyberspace. I think we have another caller there. Dr. Klineberg, you're just popular, man. Everybody wants to learn, which is a great thing. We need to learn, and as a community, we've got to come together, learn from each other, share information, and that's the only way we're going to continue to progress. We have another caller. We have Jay Flores. Jay, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Garcia, how are you? God bless you. How you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for calling me, Jay. What can we do for you? What question do you have for either me, Gilbert Garcia, or Dr. Klineberg?
Well, I am in New York, and I'm actually right now relocating to Houston.
Oh, well,
I'm actually.
We can't wait to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And in regards of what you folks are saying right now, in towards the financial situation. Families, I'm very surprised. 48% of Americans, more or less, they don't even have an emergency $1,000 in able to support any emergency, like a car breaking down. And you need $500-600. They don't even have that, and 58%, close to 50% Americans, they don't even have $5,000 in their account. So, with this situation and with the high growth of Hispanic Americans in states like Texas, like the city of Houston, we need more financial education to the public. And I think that if you realize, if you go to school, we go to high school, we go to college. Once you hit high school, a lot of us don't go to college, and in high school we don't have financial education. They never told us how to do budgeting and how to grow our savings and what to do with that savings, how to deal with being free of debt, and then what to do with that savings, how to invest it, how to grow it, change our family tree. And I think that financial education for the public is one of the most important things that we could do, because one of the strongest things that we have, it's our income, is a tool that we have to grow our savings and to have an opportunity for investing. So one of my questions is, for example, Mr. Garcia, you are an amazing, a very successful man financially, and I congratulate you. And what would be your suggestions from your point of what can a middle class family, not that is struggling, but because usually it says $56,000 is what a American household brings, an average. What would you suggest for an average family to start on investing if you want to look at for like a stock market, for example, or something for a long term for retirement? What suggestions would you give out to folks like us?
Sure. Well, thank you for the call, and you can stay on, and thank you for the question. I'm not a wealth advisor, but let me give you my 2 cents. First and foremost, there are so many low-hanging fruit things, meaning I see people all the time getting lots of credit cards, and the rates on the credit cards are just obscenely high.
Right.
I see people that may have very high mortgage loans, and they could refinance it, save money, and it's right in front of you. So my view is the little things are, with any discretionary, which means after expenses, any sort of, I want to say, a little bit of money, extra savings, any discretionary savings, first and foremost, pay down those credit cards, pay down that debt, because that's what's eating you up.
The interest rate.
The interest rate. Some of those are like 18% even now. The other is your car loan is probably out there. And now you're in New York, you probably have mass transit. But for those that are in car cities like we are, that's probably the next biggest thing, which is your car. And so again, if you can make a little bit of extra payment on that car to help it get out of the way so you can have it free and clear, that's a good thing to do, because that rate might be high. The third is your home mortgage. First and foremost, if you are in the money and you can refinance it, now rates have gone up quite a bit in the last year or so. But if it was still in the money, I encourage you to refinance. If it's no longer refinanceable, believe it or not, the cost of money and the compounding of the cost of money is so great over the life of that loan that even if you threw $10 a month extra, it's called a curtailment, extra to pay down that principal. You'd be surprised how quickly over time you will bring forward that final maturity date. I mean, you'd be very shocked at just an extra $10, $20 a month will do to shorten the life of the loan. So those to me are some of the easier things that I would try to do with any possible discretionary type monies. Even $10 can help start to pay that down if you do it consistently. So those are some of my tidbits of, what to do. The other is, the thing about life and I think the great journey about life is we're always still struggling to learn about the journey of life. And we never have it figured out, Dr. Klineberg. We never do. But the thing I have learned in my 59 years is if you do things that you love, you will probably be good at it. In other words, the most important thing out there, everyone in Houston and your kids, kids say, well, I want to be a doctor or I want to be a lawyer. At the end of the day, they need to be themselves. And if they do something that they enjoy, they'll probably be good at it and be successful at it and have a very happy and fulfilled life.
And they're going to have more than one job. I mean,
well, that's right. Go ahead, Dr. Klineberg. What are you seeing in the data about two-job families now?
In my early years,
two-job persons.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, the concept of the one life, one career imperative, that you decide what you're going to do at the age of 20 and you do that nonstop until you're 65 and then retire with a pension. That's not the 21st century. We're going to have 4 to 5 career changes, they think, for the average person. So it's a lifelong learning and a lifelong process. And one has to ask, what's the best step for me now to take at this point without necessary, and financial literacy, as a caller has suggested, is enormously important as a part of this. But it's also a question of investing in your own skills and coming back to school from birth to college, from cradle to career. And that's the new reality of the knowledge economy that we're in.
Wow. Yeah. Well, Jay, what do you got? I'm going to give you another minute here. What else do you got, my friend?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I educated myself financially on the simple stuff. I didn't go major. I just went and I educated myself on how to budgeting, for example. It's one of the things that a lot of us don't really do, don't really focus on where does every single dollar go. So I did that for my family. I was $42,000 in debt. Got myself out of there in about a year and a half.
Amen.
And I created, amen, yes. And I created within almost 3 years after that, I built the wealth of $100,000. Now, my parents, my mom worked 2 jobs. God bless her for us, because it was a single family. It was a single mom with 2 kids, 2 boys. So I know, and my parents know the struggle growing up without money. Always paycheck to paycheck. And now I'm 41 years old, and I learned the feeling and the taste of having even 5,000, 10, 20, the growth of money and the liberty that gives you. And if you combine that with what the doctor was saying, and you combine that with and what you, Mr. Garcia, was saying, and you combine that with, you work with what you love. You know what the saying that says that, if you do what you love, it doesn't feel like work, So if you combine both of them, I think it's just a recipe for success. And, and from my point of view, us, especially, I'm Hispanic American. I think that as a Latino in the United States, I think if we focus a lot on financial education to the public, the success that will come out of that, because if you educate a family financially and you allow them, give them a path to build wealth, you give them the opportunity of even invest for retirement funds, put some money on some index funds, some mutual funds, something that they could grow, something that they could hold on and actually they could retire with dignity, and that's just my opinion. I think that's something to look at.
You gave the best advice of all. So, budget and live wisely and within your means.
Yes.
But we also have to raise the minimum wage. We also have to
Yes.
make sure that people are being paid enough so that
Yes.
they can build on
Yeah.
that.
And the funny thing about Jay, thank you for calling in, my friend.
Sure,
I'm gonna
sure.
take another call here.
God bless you.
Welcome to Houston.
Yes, I think the
Thank
interesting
you.
about the concept of minimum wage, what people lose sight of, if you give people, and remember, we're not giving them anything. They're earning a livable wage.
Right.
Well, that will be able to raise them up into sort of a middle class lifestyle, which will make them spend money on things,
Yes.
which will do nothing more than stimulate the economy even more.
Absolutely.
I mean, people don't lose sight of, the key to economic prosperity for a society is really the middle class, and people to be able to reach the middle class and to spend money. Because if you're on the top 1%, no matter how much more money you make, it's not going to matter because you're not going to spend extra money.
Yacht.
You're not going to buy another yacht. And so the key is that extra minimum wage increase will give people the ability. It's the difference between buying a refrigerator or not even having one. We have one more question, and then Dr. Klineberg, we're going to just go to survey. Is that Eileen? I don't know how to say that. Aileen?
No, it's Aline.
Aline, I'm so sorry, Aline. Please excuse me. I'm Gilbert Garcia with a tip from Gilbert, talking inspiration and prayer with Dr. Klineberg. What do you got for us?
I have a question. I've been listening to your show. Thank you for taking my call. For Dr. Stephen Klineberg, and you said you did the survey back during the time when it was booming and there was the oil and gas.
That 1 year, yes. I wish I'd started it earlier.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
The question is, are you still doing that survey in 2023? And what was the demographic?
Yes, the answer is we are doing it. There's a whole team now at this revamped Kinder Institute that is doing this. There's going to be a release of the findings in April, and we've just collected the data. And I personally have not seen it yet, but they promised to show it to me very soon. It's a representative random sample of Harris County residents asking people these identical questions over the years. And
it's various cultures or ethnic groups.
Absolutely. I mean, as we become more ethnically diverse,
it reflects the demographic makeup of the city, which of course is incredible melting pot of all melting pots,
and also the economic
demographics,
home ownership, and a whole range of other things. Things that the census tells us about the city, we're able to then match that distribution with the sample, and so you get a pretty. And then there's a margin of error plus or minus 3%. So a change from 1 year to the next of 4 or 5 percentage points. Could be random fluctuation.
I mean, you can't get much tighter than that. Not really.
But a change of 8 or 9 percentage points tells you people are answering the question.
That's right.
So that's what's
right.
Well, let's ask this.
I was in excuse me.
No, you go ahead.
In that time when it was booming, and I heard you mention Cameron Iron and those type companies. And I worked for a lot of oil and gas during that time, and the booming areas in the demographic. Part of the scheme of this is that in the oil corridor over in the Katy area, it was very prosperous in that area.
Right.
But I do remember in working in the oil and corridor area, but everything moved out to the woodlands or out that way. Sugarland and demographic was never oil and gas type of except for things like Lord Daniels and those things. So the whole makeup that changed as it relates to community per the individuals that lived in those areas, because they were taking their education and their jobs, or they were taking jobs that was in these affluent neighborhoods. So the middle class, if you will, because we can start there, because there was middle class, and then there was the upper class, and then we had the people that was living on basic life skills,
poverty,
and below the poverty line. So that middle class is gone as of today, and we're trying to catch up in an area where we did have jobs like, in oil and gas, and people were making money, but then it was the ones that was at the top was moving these businesses out of your community or out of areas where you can go and get a job where to put you in that middle class status. So what are they doing as it relates to that now? Because a lot of the oil and gas had moved over to the north in the Woodland area.
Right. I mean, it's
And that disparity, that gap is getting wider.
well, that's the big point. I mean, the jobs have changed dramatically, and
Right.
and so the gap between rich and poor has accelerated in very powerful ways. And as I say, all the benefits of economic growth, believe it or not, in the last 40 years went to the top 20% of Americans, and most of that to the top 5%, most of that to the top 1%.
1%.
And the 1/10 of 1% own 19% of the wealth of this country.
Gosh.
1/10 of 1%. It's more inequality in America than almost any other industrial country in the world. And that's the real problem. And that's what has to be addressed.
And that's what the source of all the social unrest really is when you think about it. And that's what leads to unequal access to education, healthcare, all of those things, the overrepresentation in the criminal justice system, all of those things.
That's right.
Eileen, thank you for calling. I'm going to just sort of randomly go through a couple.
And I agree totally. One last thing, I agree totally with the financial education as well as basic education and higher education. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you for calling. Dr. Klineberg, I'm going to do a lightning round here with you. So yeah, lightning round. So first of all, what are the top 3 issues that people in Houston want to see change or want to see their city do, the city leaders?
Well, there's a lot of concern about traffic and pollution and crime, and these broader concerns about education and about what is necessary for success, and a significant increase in the percentage that government needs to take action to reduce the income differences between rich and poor. There's a new sensitivity and awareness that this is not a society anymore that gives everybody an equal chance. It's a society that is increasingly concentrating wealth in the hands of a smaller and smaller number of people. And it's especially a challenge for Houston because that's really where the new folks coming in that will be the population increase are disproportionately underserved by the school systems and the support systems that we need. So it's a deepening inequality that is increasingly being recognized by the citizens of Houston, and something that goes against the Houston grain. And so it's taken a while for that to develop. But what I think the surveys have told us that we didn't know before is that when you ask people in the privacy of their homes, how do you see the world? People see a different world now. They see a new set of challenges that they hadn't seen before.
I guess there is some hope there in my view, which is it's kind of like the first way a patient can get better is to recognize what's wrong.
Right.
You know, let's just pretend, I don't mean to be morbid here, but you have cancer. The first step is to know you have it so you can treat it.
Right.
So to hear that the major population, the people realize we need to spend more money on education, we need to do more of these things, to me that gives me hope that hopefully the leadership will respond and do what we need to do. Right. No, I that gives me some hope.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Me too. And it's hard to be against Houston. I mean, there's one of my favorite questions is what people complain in our surveys because we invite them to about traffic, pollution, crime, the no mountains, the hot summers, the flying cockroaches. And we say, well, how would you rate the Houston area as a place to live? It's a wonderful place to live. Just striking kind of.
It's kind of like when people say about, I don't like Congress and I don't like, well, what about your congressperson? Right. Oh, I really like him. I really like her. That's another one of those things. Yeah. Well, maybe that's just human nature. But at the end of the day, I really think as we're going to wind out here, we'll have 2 or 3 minutes on social media as you look in that camera. This has been a great episode. And I really want to say, Dr. Klineberg, when I really mean this, you are a treasure. And your work, whether you stumbled in on it or whether you were touched with the finger of the Lord to start this work, it really has done such great good for the city and the community. And it's so wonderful that the Kinder Institute is going to take it bigger and broader and deeper, and it's taking it on. Amen to them.
Here.
So what do you want to say to Houston as you start to say goodbye and move to your new life in D.C.?
I think I want to say that Houston matters. That what happens here is powerfully indicative of what will happen across the country, as all of America will come to look like Houston in about 25 years. We're there first. So what we do matters. And I'll be watching and coming back and forth, obviously, and caring deeply about this extraordinary city that that really is a harbinger of what all of America is going to be, and how we navigate this transition will have real significance for the American future, not just the Houston future.
I love it. So Houston, you heard it here first. Please get the book. I'm not here to sell the book. I don't get any proceeds or anything, but get the book, Prophetic City, Houston on the Cusp of a Changing America by Dr. Stephen Klineberg. I'm going to have most of my copies that I bought are spoken for, but I'll have a couple in case anyone wants to swing by the office. He's going to sign them here, and I'll have a couple here for the community. At the end of the day, it's our Houston. It's our home. Let's invest in it. Let's make it better. And you heard it here first. And this is Gilbert Andrew Garcia, a tip from Gilbert saying, we'll see you next time.
Okay.
All right. We are now on social media. We're off radio. So, Dr. Klineberg, you'll be talking to Houston in that camera. I'll be looking at this camera. And I really enjoyed the show. And I hope you did too. You know, it's one of those things. Remember Carol Burnett?
Sure.
Okay. Remember when she would end the show and there was the song, I'm so glad we had this time together. Remember that?
Yeah,
just to have a laugh, feel out, and sing a song. And before you know it, comes a time to say so long. Can you believe our hour's over?
Amazing.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
I mean, it goes like that.
That was great fun and really and important stuff. I mean, it's really, and I think, and the way the city has responded to the surveys is a powerful indication also of a city that cares about itself, wants to know. And you know, we started this survey just with, as I said, it cost us very little money because we had these captive people doing the interviewing. And then I would go off and give talks about it. And I'd say, you know, thank you for asking me. Would you support the survey with a tax deductible gift to Rice? And people immediately came through. And within 1 or 2 years, we had all the money we needed to be able to hire additional interviewers. And then within 3 or 4 years, we could just, you know, farm it out to professional interviewers right from the beginning. And it was just a remarkable measure of the degree to which the city said, we want to know what's happening. And here was and the other thing I like about the surveys, I can say to people, don't blame me. I'm just asking.
That's right.
I'm just asking the questions.
That's right.
Here's the exact wording of the question. Here's the answers that we get in each of these years. And you can see the evolution of an understanding of the city.
And it's not necessarily a poll, you know, because sometimes polls have an agenda or you know, this is really just old fashioned. What do you think?
How do you see the world?
How do you see the world? And how do you see Houston?
Yeah.
And you just tell it like it is. It's unfiltered. And you just report back.
Here are the data.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And remember, data is key. And you know what they always say, the data will set you free because the data is key. Well, Dr. Klineberg, I really appreciate you being on the show. Tell us, what are you going to do in D.C.? Tell Houston, what are you doing as you're going to be in your golden years here and retired? And I guess you're going to be with your children or grandkids?
Well, that's the key. I mean, I've got 2 children and 5 grandchildren. They all live in the Washington, D.C. area. And 4 of the 5 grandchildren went to Rice. So there was this wonderful period, about 8 years, when I would walk across campus to teach a class, and there's a granddaughter.
Oh my God!
But they're all sort of waiting in Houston, in Washington, and so I figured,
it's wonderful. Well, everybody's Rice. Well, do you have any great grandkids?
Not yet. This generation is very slow.
Well, you know what? On that note. And I love you, son. So if I say anything that I'm gonna hurt your feelings, you just know I love you. So my oldest is 30, and he's an internet security specialist. He's, you know, and he and his wife let us know that they don't have any plans to have any children.
None at all.
Oh my God! You could have just like took out my wife's heart. Like, oh my God! Like, because she is so convinced she'll be the coolest grandmother ever. Coolest. Not the greatest. She said, I'll be the coolest grandmother ever. But no, what a beautiful thing. Well, hopefully you'll have those because, you know, you got a lot of life left in you, my friend. And it'll be very, very cool, and you deserve it. Well, all right. I'm going to just say one more time, Houston, we thank you for joining us here on another episode of A Tip from Gilbert, Talk, Inspiration, and Prayer. And we will see you next time. This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia. Listen to my radio show, A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer every Monday from 11 a.m. till noon on Houston's gospel leader, KWWJ 13. 1460 AM and streaming live on kwwj.org. Listen on the legendary KYOK 1140 AM and streaming live on kyokradio.org. KCOH 1230 AM, The Source. On Send Geek Radio 95.1 FM 1460 AM. And Aliento Radio 101.7 FM and 1540 AM. Call in at 832-570-8075 and follow me on social media. See you then.